Bill, and I'm back in the Atomic Autosports studio to bring you another episode of the Late to Grid podcast, where we talk about inspiring stories from inspiring people that will hopefully grow our sport of grassroots racing. And this episode is so special because it hits on a really important topic that should be top of mind for a lot of us. And that's, how do we care for our servicemen and women that have served our country and help them with what they need. And I'm really excited to have Luke Ryker in studio today, remotely, to talk about this topic. He's from Track Heroes, and he and I met where I meet a lot of people, Nelson Ledges, but the 944 Fest this past year. So, Luke, it's great to have you here.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me, Bill. It was great meeting you at that event, and I'm really excited about this opportunity.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I was talking with a Marine. We never say former, right?
Right.
Talk with a Marine last night.
It's never ex-Marine, right? It's never an ex-Marine.
Right. And I just mentioned that I was having you on the podcast. I'm like, have you heard about the program? Well, I forgot. He was also at 944 Fest hanging out on Sunday of that weekend, and became familiar with the program, and he was impressed with the idea as well. So
That's great.
I want to let the listeners know we are going to get a little nerdy and geeky on some scientific stuff today, but it's really important because it lays a groundwork for the idea that you put together. And we might as well just start off with that. And then we're going to talk about all the racing stuff and all the smiles that you create. But top-down regulation is the concept, right?
Correct. So the process that we're doing is we're using, to start off with the super nerdy top level, using the interior cingulate cortex to provide top-down regulation of the HPA axis. And we'll get into that a little bit, and we'll explain a little bit more. But essentially, the HPA is a dysregulation that's common in veterans that leads to a whole slew of symptoms. And our program is an attempt to bring that system back into alignment to give veterans a fighting chance, and veterans and first responders.
Right. All heroes. So
Yes,
the idea is that our heroes, and when we say hero, we're talking military, all branches, and we're talking first responders, frontline folks. They are constantly going at 100%. They are constantly in high engagement activities. There's always something going on. And then when they're removed from that, it's difficult for them to deal with it.
Correct. I mean, your body, when you go to the gym, you work out, you do things a lot, you get better at doing it. And your body tends to want to do the things that it's good at. And so if for decades and decades, you're constantly putting yourself in a certain mindset, in a certain frame of mind, in a certain, way of approaching things, getting your body amped up to do certain things, your body gets really, really good at it and wants to continue doing it. And so a lot of guys, it's difficult. The other end ends up being atrophied a bit because you don't use it as much. And then in the civilian world, the amped up sympathetic fight or flight side is not as revered, let's just say, in the civilian world as it is in the military world. So a lot of times, guys have a difficult time transitioning that way. That's a hard transition for a lot of guys and gals, a lot of folks.
And I think this is a good part of the episode to bring in how cars got involved in this. So you were in the market for a motorcycle. You wanted to have something that you could, get the adrenaline going a little bit.
Exactly.
And you came across a Subaru. The wife gave it 2 thumbs up. 4 wheels on the ground's better than 2.
Correct.
You got that 17 STI, and you went to CMP, Carolina Motorsports Park, for a track day. Was it that track day that really made the connection with, this can lead to something like Track Heroes, where I can bring a program to help men and women?
I mean, at the time, I'd never heard of it. I mean, high performance driver education, going on the track with your own car, that just seemed far fetched. I mean, it just seemed an impossible thing, so I didn't even know to look for it. And so it was through the purchase of this car. I mean, I told the dealer, the Subaru dealer, I'm like, listen, because I have 2 kids, I'm like, unless you got a 4-door car, manual transmission that's fast as heck, I'm not coming in. I thought that was an impossible ask. And, he said, I got 2, and then introduced me to the STI and one of his friends that actually does HPDEs and was interested in doing one in the near future. So we linked up, and I went to my first one. And I definitely did not know what I was doing. Anybody that's been to the track would know. I mean, like, I had my car full of stuff. I mean, I showed up at tech inspection without a helmet. And like the floor, like everything was still in the car, like change in there. They're like, you've never been here before. Have you? But they were awesome. They opened their arms up to me. I had a great first instructor, which was key. A guy named Jack Sugamelli from Big Dog Motorsports. He took me under his wing and went to the first HPD, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. And at the first one, I didn't really realize, how beneficial it was. But I immediately wanted to do another one, and do another one after that. And after doing it for a number of years, probably it was about 3 years between my first HPDE and when I eventually started Track Heroes, going to different events, meeting different people. Cause I mean, I was one person, I didn't have any friends in that network. I was going in cold. But I eventually grew a network, a group of friends that went there, and it was awesome, man. It was going there, meeting with people, that just wanted to go and drive, and then actually driving itself. I mean, I never felt more at peace than when I was in the driver's seat. And at the time, I was going through, the VA mental health program. I was seeing my counselor, and I was kind of feeling like as at a plateau. I wasn't getting any better, and so it came at the right place at the right time, and I was just. I felt significantly better than I had felt in a very long time, and better in a way that then I felt like I had a chance of even feeling under the VA's thing. And so I just jumped in with both feet and started going as much as I can.
So
it eventually led to Track Heroes.
Yeah. Did something click then when you had that realization that, okay, I need to focus maybe more or less on clinical things and going into someone's office, and I need to be in a car more. I need to be at the track more. I need to be doing more of this stuff.
Well, I definitely wanted to get out to the track as much as I can. The problem is, as a, disabled vet, just doing your normal 9-to-5 job, there's guys out there with 6-figure cars and like even higher budget just to get them out there, just see the trucks and trailers. So and the entrance fees were sometimes, I couldn't get into it. So, I mean, I would love to have gotten more into it, more access, but I felt like there wasn't really. It was difficult for me to find more time to get there. So, I mean, I wanted to get into it a little bit more, and I tried to share, my feelings and, the experience I was having with the VA. They didn't seem very responsive to it. Didn't really fit into their program for me. And so that, one side was working, one side wasn't. So I ended up tending more towards, what I could afford on the high performance driving side. And it wasn't until, around 2020 where this, with this cross section was really happening, where I was getting a lot of help on one and not much on the other, that I reached out to a friend. He was another veteran. He was getting his doctorate in behavioral health, I think. And he was just a good friend that I'd worked with a long time on the military, the defense contracting side, which is where I was working at the time. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, I'm really struggling with mindfulness and the stuff that they're pushing at the VA. But when I'm on the track, man, I am feeling great. It lasts a long time. Like that plateau is gone. I'm feeling an upward trend. I'm like, is this mindfulness? Because did I find a different way to get into mindfulness, through the track? And, he was like, wow, that's a really interesting question. Let's see what we can find here. And, he's super, nerdy when it comes into it. And his name is Wes Powers, great friend of mine. And, we started between the two of us, mostly him, honestly, because like you said, he had access to all the research journals, getting his doctorate or whatnot. He wasn't just Google searching things. And basically he just has a researcher's mindset. He just loves doing that stuff. And so we were, over the next year or so, we were going back and forth and looking at different journals and different studies. And it just seemed like a lot of researchers look through their question to a straw. They never see what's connected to it. And so we were looking at these different things like, wow, all these things seem to associate, and it looks like all these things lined up. And we think that, if we do this, we could possibly help this issue. And we developed what we call the adaptive control program, which basically uses the ACC, the anterior cingulate cortex, to address this HPA dysregulation. And so we were like, wow, this is something completely different. And we found a way to use specifically motorsports. Motorsports has a very it affects very specific parts of the brains and of the brain. It strengthens certain parts. Anyone that goes and drives a car, you could tell. Luke, it just happens to be the right spot.
So as you were dealing, it was Wes, right?
Yes, Wes did the majority of it, yeah.
When you and Wes were going through this, Did you ever think it would lead to something like Track Heroes? When you initially started talking, what was the goal?
It was just a curiosity, just trying to self-discovery. This was working for me, and I wanted to know why. That there had to be a reason why this was helping, and it couldn't just be like, well, it helps. I felt like there had to be a bit more to it. And honestly, it's because I was feeling so good about it. I wanted to, make sure that I could continue feeling this good. And then, I felt like there was a lot of friends of mine that were dealing with the same stuff. And we always had the same conversations about plateauing or about, just not getting what we want, just out of the VA, or being frustrated with the VA's mental health support, and I'm not bad mouthing them. They have a very difficult problem. I mean, every trauma is completely different, and they're all trying to figure it out and do it through bureaucracy. So, I mean, they're already behind the 8 ball. And the people on the front line, they definitely try their best. But sometimes you can't, one size fits all doesn't fit everybody.
So in 2 or 3 sentences, tell me what Track Heroes is during the weekend.
So on the track weekend, to the veteran, to the hero, it's a facilitation of access to high performance driving. They're like, wow, I could never have gotten to this on my own. Track Heroes helped me out. They hooked me up. Here I am doing this awesome, amazing event. I am driving a high performance vehicle. We have multiple stages, like a crawl, walk, race, and then maintain phase of our program. And at every phase, it's a kind of a different interaction, but each time the hero just feels like they're just having a great time. We tell them, like, hey, this is a mental health benefit program. They're like, okay, but to them, they're just driving. We just put it in a very specific sequence that hits certain neurological gateways to guide them down the path through the adaptive control program. But it's completely to them. They're just driving. They just think they're having a blast. And it isn't until the end when we explain to them how we essentially biohack their brain to get them to this state that the blinders come off, and it gives them the ability to understand what we're doing in the walk and the run phase. And I believe we ran into you guys in the walk phase during an HPDE.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think young man Alex was driving the BMW that weekend. A couple other folks were doing some, right seat, hanging with some folks out on track. It was, the presence at the track was great. You had a booth set up with a lot of informational stuff, and then you had your paddock set up with a big tent, and the truck and trailer were there. We'll get to truck and trailer in a minute. But yeah, the car looks good. It's a BMW. It looked great on track. You've done 43 events, I think. 78 veterans helped, 130 plus different sessions with those folks.
Yes, sir.
How does somebody get to be one of the folks that ends up on track?
Thank you for asking. So basically on our website, we have a registration page for heroes that they could go in. They basically click, it says register here. On your mobile, it shows up in your bottom. It follows you around annoyingly wherever you go. But when you click on it, it brings up a form. And in that form, you basically write out your personal information, contact information, give us the right to contact you. And then, information about your service and if you have a track vehicle. And essentially what that ends up doing is it adds you to our large database of all the heroes that we have registered through our program. And whenever a new event pops up, whether that's a crawl event, with the BMW Performance Center where, we do the intro, it's like a full access. You just need to show up. Not as often. I wish we could do more of those. Or the walk events where we get BMW Club, Porsche Club, Audi Club, the different car clubs who donate free HPDE slots to us. Or even race opportunities with our race program with high performance heroes and what's the other one? And the follow-on mission. Those guys are awesome. We basically put out a blast email to our people in our network, who have registered with us, and it's attached to our database. And essentially says, hey, this is the opportunity. This is what you need to have to be able to be to accept this slot. And this is the date, and you have to be able to commit to accepting the slot. You have to show up. Are you interested? And then basically they click their interest in it. And we usually open registration for about a week or so, sometimes a little longer, depending on the event. And that all the people that click yes, all the heroes that click yes, we then, put that on a separate list and we reach out to them and say, hey, we have this amount of slots, first come, first serve. And the feeding frenzy begins. And we typically try to assign a primary and an alternate to each of these because, life does happen. Life does happen, and we don't hold it over your head. It's challenging for us sometimes. Please let us know, earlier the better, because we have to fill that slot. But yeah, that's the best way. Just sign up through there and just start to show up.
All right. I'm sure there's opportunities to get involved not behind the wheel. What if someone says, "Well, I want to be involved, but I don't want to put a helmet on." Are there opportunities where people can volunteer and help the mission?
Absolutely. I mean, on our website, we have an events page, and that shows all the events that we have on the calendar coming up, and so that'll list all the driving events, the track events. And a lot of times it's always better to have more hands than less. There have been a few where I'm the only one, working it out. And I got 4 veterans trying to drive 2 of their own car, 2 driving to share our car, and just making sure everybody has a good time. Like Cirque du Soleil, I'm running behind the scenes, making sure everyone has badges and everyone has all the things that make their weekend completely smooth and fun. So they can just focus on the driving. And always good to have an extra set of hands, whether that's running to deal with Murphy. I mean, that's the biggest dude. He's the guy that's always uninvited, but always seems to find his way to our paddock.
Now, tell me about someone who came into the program and has consistently gotten better on track and maybe now be racing. You have any examples like that?
Oh, I have a perfect example. And this guy is just one of actually 2 or 3 that are the same sort of ways. A guy named Brian Ellis. He's a former Green Bean or Green Beret guy. He actually still teaches he still teaches his craft, let's just say. And I ran into him through another charity. I think it was I don't know, something to this the Special Forces. Like they had a support group. And he was recommended to us, like, hey, you should try talking to Brian. Brian, he's a great guy. He helps us out. He might help you out. And so we met. I gave him a free slot to a BMW, or no, actually to an HPDE event. He had a crazy Shelby Mustang, way over horsepowered, just crazy. He was out there, and I'm like, hey man, let's go out on the track. And so we took him to a track, and I explained the program to him, and he was like, wow, this is amazing. I want to get more involved in this. And so he signed up, eventually got chosen for a BMW Performance Center slot. So we got read into the science behind it, and really wanted to start volunteering. So he started volunteering, and also was, had his own vehicle, started driving with us as well. Got a number of slots, and then, through our program, and through the motorsports community, he ended up meeting with the team called the Follow-On Mission. And they facilitate veterans getting into champ car races. And so they have this amazing 64 Chevy Malibu that AJ had as a kid, and him and Rebecca, they transformed into an amazing car. I mean, if you've ever been doing a race that they're in, you'll see it. I mean, it's the only 64 Malibu out there.
I've seen that. They raced with us at NCM here in March of 24. And
great people.
Yeah, a lot of eyeballs on that car. That's a great thing they're doing.
Yeah, and so through that, Brian and Andy and a few other guys that they're interested in getting to the racing side. We were able to facilitate that. There's also another one with the High Performance Heroes where they get into the vintage racing. We've had a couple of veterans also drive with them, just doing some vintage racing, so some introductory stuff. And then we've had some. We haven't had the full program yet, but there are some race teams, the WRL, that we have spoken to in the past that were interested in, kind of using some of our guys to, for their program. So those things are still to come, but we've definitely got some racing seats for those people. And honestly, it's helped us expand our network. Part of our program, we're the adaptive control program, the high performance driving, helping mental health. Those programs, Follow-On Mission and High Performance Heroes, they partner with us. And so we work with providing them heroes. We also provide them with verification and quantification that their program and the stuff that they're doing does help these guys. And so, it helps. It's one hand washing another. They provide us with the capability. We provide them with, solid evidence that their program is actually doing beneficial things. And I think together we work together and help each other out.
Right. Yeah, it's great that there's such a close-knit community of everything you guys are doing, and it feeds one another, and everyone plays off of that.
Yeah, we're working on that. Yep, it's definitely going to get there. I think that there's definitely room for more. There's definitely, if there's other programs, other high performance driving things that help with veterans, it seems like a lot of these things, a lot of guys have, a lot of heroes, veterans have felt this this benefit that I felt, and they're like, wow, I want to share this with my community. And a lot of times, it's a lot of ones and twosies out there with whatever energy and passion that they individually have, trying to accomplish and share what they've experienced. And we've been successful. We've had some good supporters. We have a good message, but not everybody has that. And so we kind of want to help those guys and gals out, those other veteran support programs out, because I think the need is out there. There's definitely a lot more need than there is support. And so I don't feel like this is we could grow the pie. I mean, we could grow this, and I think we could all help each other out.
So what's the funniest thing that's happened during an event?
Oh man. I mean, I can think of a couple. I mean, there was one where, he was, let's just say he was a veteran. He came in and, we did, our whole, screening on him, and we got him to the event. And the guys at the BMW Performance Center are awesome. They've dealt with all types of people. We had one guy, that we called full throttle, because those BMWs are amazing. When you put on the traction control, if you're going 80 and you want to go left, they're like, okay, well, we'll go left, but we'll put on all these crazy things to make it happen. And the car like brakes and drags, and it does all the calculations. They'll let you do that left-hand turn. And so we'd always call him full throttle because the guy wouldn't use his brakes. But the second guy, the guy that really cracked me up, like every turn, we call him no brake Dave. Like, man, why are you not even braking before these turns? And like the next day when we're sitting there talking about it afterwards, he had not mentioned it to anybody. He was like, yeah, well, I'm like mostly blind in my right eye. We're like, it's not no brake Dave. It's blind Dave. Blind Dave, why are you driving on this track? You should have told someone. He's like,
that gives a new meaning.
Floor. Like everybody like fell down. Like if it was a cartoon, everyone would have fallen on the floor. Like, what, dude? That's important information. And obviously that caused, it was in the beginning, and we found we have a little more probing in our questions. We also mentioned it to the folks there, and everyone's like, yeah, well, we had provisions for that. But as well, they passed. If he's got a driver's license, it's good enough.
Oh my goodness. So Dave gives a new meaning to the blind apex. Right.
Truly. Yeah, we thought he was crazy. We just found now he's brave. He's like, I think it turns here.
Oh my goodness.
But funny stuff. But that's just veteran stuff. I mean, and the stories that we share in between, I far more hilarious than that. Because the brotherhood, the sharing, honestly, gallows humor. But like most stories on the veteran side, the teller is the key of the story. So I would just do it a terrible injustice if I've ever tried to give some of them out. But I will tell you that some of the greatest times I've had sitting around, the dinner table or around like the lunch table after a track session with these guys, and just seeing like these normally stoic, veteran-faced guys, that don't have time for anything. If that's because that's where we are. We're like, just don't have any time for nonsense. Just sitting there like kids, like little boys and girls with giant smiles on their faces and just going to town. I mean, that's so gratifying. And personally, that's what we do it for, honestly.
Yeah. So geographically, because you're based in Charleston?
Correct. Yes, we're personally based out of Summerville, South Carolina, right outside of Charleston. But right now, our largest event that we do, the crawl event, is at the BMW Performance Center in Spartanburg. And so typically the people that come to that event, we cover the full event. You show up, we cover food, lodging, and the cars, the instructors. I mean, you just show up, it's turnkey. It's amazing. But you got to get yourself there, so that we tend to pull from people that could drive. But anybody could show. Anybody is eligible for the slot. They just have to get themselves there. And we're working on finding additional regional training centers so we can expand this to other regions. But we also, for the track stuff, for HPDEs, we've gone as far north as Nelson Ledges. That's probably our furthest north so far, or at least furthest to the northwest. We've done multiple events. I think this weekend I'm going to VIR with the Audi Club. They provided us with like 6 slots, 3 instructor, 3 driver slots, and so that's 6 heroes driving. That's awesome. That's a lot of therapy sessions going on. And in a couple weeks after that, we're going down to Road Atlanta with the Audi or the BMW Club for a Road Atlanta event. So that's about where we're at. We do Roebling. We did, I think, Summit Point, Roebling, Carolina Motorsports Park. But we're always looking to expand to new things. You know, a lot of times it's just getting the stuff and fitting it on the calendar. But we're primarily in that region right now.
All right. This program wouldn't be possible without people that help. Just like you're helping people, people have helped your program, your organization, and you're able to co-locate with a shop there where the car can be serviced and worked on. They've offered to use the truck and trailer. Tell us more about that organization.
Yeah, so that was really cool. Gordon Friedman and his boys and girls at the at Autometrics, they're just one of the best shops here on the East Coast. I don't have a Porsche, but I hear that when it comes to Porsches, they're the people to go to. They learned about our program. We ran into them on the track a couple years back. We ran into his son Corey and them. Introduced Track Heroes. They were interested in what we're doing. We ended up getting an opportunity to get some space. We're looking for a permanent physical location to keep our vehicle, to store all the event gear and kind of like hold meetings if we need to. And just perfect happenstance, ran into him at the right time, told him our need, and he's like, "Hey, you should. I have a corner of a warehouse that I can give to you where you can store your stuff and set up a really cool little desk." And so I'm sitting, and so we worked it out. We ended up working out a deal where now we have a physical location at one of his sites near the Autometrics garage and warehouse. And then from there, as we were talking more, we were showing more about the program. Once we got the car that he's helping us maintain, I mean, they help us out so much. The need to be able to get it from point A to point B so that the heroes could actually drive it, became a big expense. We had to rent the trailer, rent the truck. And he had a trailer, a van, an old Burgundy V10 van that I call Ron Burgundy, and an aluminum trailer. And he's like, "Hey, whenever you need it, free use, you could use it. Get your car, get your stuff wherever you need to." And that has been an amazing godsend because, I mean, that opened the door wide open. I mean, it made our budget or our event costs go down significantly, a lot. I mean, a huge chunk of that percentage, probably even close to like 30% of the cost, was trying to get transportation, again, the vehicle from point A to point B, when it came to, event costs, per event cost. And so that was a huge game changer for us. And so we're very grateful to Gordon and the guys at Autometrics, both for giving us a resource that we could use to bring more therapy to veterans and heroes, but also for, just doing a great job maintaining the car. I know how to blow things up. I'm a bomb squad guy. I'm EOD. I can take it apart, I can take it apart real fast. But putting it back together and making sure it doesn't fall apart, that's not really what my area of expertise. And I'm always a fan of finding experts to do the job that they're the expert in, especially when it comes to something like the vehicle that you're putting heroes in. And their guys are just top-notch guys. We feel absolutely safe, getting into that car because of their expertise. They will not let her out of the shop without it being buttoned up and good to go.
Yeah, and that makes your weekends easier too when you have a car that's ready to go and you're not trying to fix it to get those heroes on track. So that's great they're involved.
Exactly. I mean, because at the end, it's still a rental car, I was told one time, very funny, it's like if you ever, like letting someone borrow your car on a track day or letting someone borrow your race car is like letting someone borrow your popsicle on a hot day. Just don't expect to get it back in the same condition. It's not going to happen. So, having guys that I'm not chasing problems from 2 events ago, they're solid every single time. It's making everything so much easier.
Yeah. One question that comes up in a program like this is, how often can you really keep serving the same hero? And that's where your maintain aspect of the program comes in. So it isn't necessarily about them constantly and consistently coming back to your program. It's opening up the door that this is a way that they can, improve their mental health, have an outlet, have different types of camaraderie. So what does the maintain portion of the program look like to a hero?
Okay, well, thank you. So Maintain is the newest one that we're building up. We're expanding that portion of the program, and essentially that's what it is. It's if you can't get out to the track every single day, there are certain perishable skills, whether that's social skills or driving skills that will eventually go away. And so so for Maintain, we work with a couple of other programs, other event organizers like charities or fun drive events. Like there's a car club called Role Models that we're working with right now. They have annual car drives like the Tail of the Dragon. They have car shows, car meets, fundraisers, and like social events. And essentially, we provide our heroes with free access to those events. And so they'll have an opportunity to maintain their socialization skills, getting out and seeing the car club, seeing the car enthusiasts, see the people that, are really passionate about their vehicles, and honestly get off the couch and see different things. So to maintain your social, your social skills and honestly just growing a different network. A lot of veterans tend to hang out with other veterans. So by integrating with and hanging out with the motorsports enthusiast club, the people that are, appreciate those, you'll find a lot of like-minded people anyway. But there could be different people and it'll be different conversations and it'll get you out of your rut. Essentially, a lot of guys, a lot of heroes find themselves in a rut. We're also working to kind of expand our the maintain on the driver side too. Sim racing, part of our studies, we found that it's like 85% effective. Not 100. You're never going to get 100. You're not going to get the G's. You're not going to get the my butt is actually on the line here, feeling in a video game, no matter how hard they try. But there still is a lot. The mental aspect of approaching a turn, your break point, your turn in point, your apex, your track out, looking at the next one down the route. You could develop the mental routine of driving the track, and that part is also very important to our program, and not only to just help you get into the zone essentially. And so we have multiple of our heroes, many of our heroes really get into the sim racing side, and so they set up and organize weekly or monthly meets where online they get online and do some races. And we have some other partners like Operation Motorsport. And other charities that do have a much larger online presence, and they open their doors to track heroes guys that want to come in and participate in their events. And typically, there's no charge. And if there is, just let me know, and I got you covered. I'll talk to them for you. And even the people at Speedology, Tamara. Oh man, B Roth, yes, Tamsin B Roth and the Speedology people. She's been awesome. We just met them, and they invited us to a couple of events, and we just went to our first one this past weekend. So, brand new partner, but we're already doing, planning on doing some stuff with them in 2025, and that'll be another opportunity for our heroes to go and see some really great cars. So anyway, we're out there, we're all over the place. We're hoping to expand and be in the actual sim racing this year. We're looking to get a rig so that as Track Heroes corporate, we could actually participate, organize, and do them. But I mean, again, that's an investment. We're a charity, so we're always looking for a supporter for that side. But yeah, that's the maintain side. Trying to maintain the things in between track sessions. Maintain your relationships with people, and then maintain some sports, your motorsports with some friendly link ups on sim racing events.
Yeah, and the last thing you want to have is peaks and valleys of yep, I did a track day, man, I am on top of the world, I'm in a good spot, and then a couple months goes by and we're back down here.
And you start reverting back to the mean. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I have a couple more questions, Luke, and this next one we're going to get a little serious. So in all these sessions you've done, you came across a hero who was in a very dark spot, and you didn't know it, the folks around you didn't know it, but he confided in you how your program helped. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I won't share his name because it was shared in confidence, I'm sure. But yeah, there's when we first started, our reach, our network was friends and family, people that we had known before. And as a Air Force EOD guy, a lot of people in my network were other Air Force EOD guys. And so when we put out our first offering, hey, free brand new BMW event, come on out, everyone's like, eye roll, like, yeah, right, sure, it's free. But a few good, the friends are like, okay, let's see what's up, and they signed up for it. And I was like, man, you got a slot, the first one, man, this is all you. And on my end, it was like, awesome, cool, man, can't wait, this is going to be the best ever, so I'm like, yeah, it's your typical response to something cool like that. At the event itself, I ran into him and he looked great. He was all smiles. He was all, in high spirits, and everything was great. And afterwards he was like, hey, Luke, you saved my life. I'm like, what? He's like, I didn't realize how bad things were. I was really trending in the wrong direction. It was there was nothing to look forward to. And then when I got your email saying, you're in something happening on this thing, I became like so excited. I started, there was a light, there was something to aim for, there was something to look forward to, something that I didn't realize I hadn't felt that in a long time. And then from the realization of realizing I hadn't been looking forward to a lot of things, that caused me to kind of shift my perspective, shifted his perspective, and looking at, all the other things in his life. And I was later, and he's like, you literally saved my life. And I had no clue. Later, I ran into friends of his because he became very involved in the program. He big volunteer, does a lot of things for us. His friends came up as like, there was like there's like before track heroes and after track heroes. Like his whole mentality, his whole disposition, his whole life seemed to change just by that realization, by getting selected for something. And then after the event, the skills that we teach them, plus, there's some exercises we teach that help, with the program, that you could use Motorsports to help, regain control if you find yourself out of control, if you feel over stressed out. And he had a lot of anger issues. He had TBI, he had traumatic brain injury from, being blown up multiple times in Iraq. He said the third time he landed, he saw everything from 100 feet up in the air and landed with a donkey brain, typical veteran gallows humor. You know what I mean? Great dude. But yeah, and then, after that, I mean, I was just completely shocked. I had no clue. I mean, he was always a funny and happy guy, always going out there. It seemed like that, at least my perspective of him was. And I guess his, behind the door, life was a lot darker. And so you never know. The veteran, happy, cheery, out there, go-getter veteran externally might be, really struggling on the inside, and that could just be his brave face or her brave face.
Right.
And I've had multiple guys come up after that, guys and gals actually come up to me, since that. We've done a number of events since that. And yeah, it's surprising every single time. I'm like, really, you? Man, I'm glad your name came up on the random slot thing. And it makes me wonder, like, which names are not being picked that we just don't have the funding yet to give these things to. And so, yeah, it feels good. I'm great on one end, feeling like, I feel like I'm playing with house money. I'm one guy that came up with this concept, found it out, and like I said, like over 70 heroes we've served already. Those expensive slots that I was finding as a huge impediment to me getting out there. We've over 130 of them now. I mean, geez, that's a lot of slots, man. And I'll tell you, that's a lot of coordination. That's a lot of great people. That's a lot of organizations that want to help heroes. They want to help veterans. They want to find a way. And so, the program grows every year. I mean, honestly, this is definitely going to expand the people that hear about us. And please reach out to us, trackheroes.org. Check us out. There's an info at trackheroes.org. Just shoot us an email if you want to help or support us. I mean, because there's so much need. There's so much need, and I want to hear all those stories about how I help. But I also want to. I just feel like there's a lot of meat on the bone.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys, there's a lot more people we could help out. We just need some more support.
Yeah, absolutely, folks. So take Luke up on his offer, hunt them down, share this message, share this episode to learn more. Is there a newsletter that you send out, Luke, that people can subscribe to?
If you go onto our website, there is a place to subscribe to get information from us. We're getting better at it. We're getting out a lot more information. Our program before was a lot smaller. The last couple of years has grown significantly, and so catching up with the growth. There's just so much good information out there. But we're active on Instagram. We're active on Facebook. We also have a TikTok. One of our heroes run each of the accounts, and so I take pictures, they take pictures, and then they put those things up there. And but it's a good idea. It's a good place to follow us when it comes to events coming up. We often post upcoming things that we're doing here soon. And so it's a good place to check us out. Follow us on all those things. We have a YouTube channel. I mean, it's all linked on the website. So if you just head out there, you'll have links to anything you want to do, whether that's events, whether that's links to socials, or even opportunities to donate, because we always need more of that.
Awesome. So 2 more questions. The first is, I know you have more folks that support the program. Give them a shout out.
So our premier sponsor is Fuchs Lubricants. You know, we reached out to them, or they reached out to us. Actually, it was awesome. One of their employees ran into us on the track. I loved what we had to do, and they're like, "Is there any way we could help?" I'm like, everything could help. I mean, that's usually my answer. And so he ran it up the flagpole, and the corporate up there loved what we did. They want to support us, and they became a premier sponsor. Not only did they provide us, a pretty decent sized donation, they also provide us with all our lubricants. So that track car that we have out there, every single oil change we do after every track day, all the other stuff, Fuchs Lubricants, they're the OEM product, and all the big factories like Porsche and Mercedes is a big one that they came out with, in a Volkswagen. They're the OEM parts for all these high end cars, but they're not in the garages, they're not in the racetracks. So they feel they have a great product, but nobody knows about, and they feel like we're a great program that nobody knows about. So
it's a good match.
We're working together to help kind of get things out. But also James Clay and Bimmer World guys, they give us discounted parts on for the car. They're awesome. James has done a couple interviews with us. He's a great dude, big supporter of Track Heroes, OG Racing. They've given us great discounts and some resources for the car safety wise. They're a veteran-owned business. Not a lot of people know that, OG Racing. And then so much more, like Big Dog Motorsports, Autometrics. Those guys help us out. Performance, Apex Graphics. I mean, I could go on for a very long time. We actually have a donors and sponsors page that has a long list of all the people that help us. EOD Warrior Foundation is a big one. They actually sponsored an entire event, a crawl event, where they basically fundraised for us to raise the money for an entire iteration of that event. And since they picked it, they funded it. We let them pick the participants. They're like, "Hey, we have a ton of EOD guys that want to go through your program." Like, hey, if you fundraise for it, you could pick the participant as long as they meet our charter of just being a veteran or first responder. And that's been a great partnership and a program that we hope to expand to other organizations that support, certain groups of veterans. We can do that for you guys too. So,
awesome.
We're open, man.
Yeah. So it's time for the last question, Luke. Has the Track Heroes car ever been late to grid?
Yes, it has.
Is there a story you could tell on that?
I mean, it's just like we are always dealing with a lot of green guys,
Right.
And so there's sometimes like, wait a minute, I'm going back out again already. I thought I had an hour. It's like, you did, you had a full hour, but that disappeared like that because I mean, anybody that's been out to the track knows that it's just like wide-eyed, overwhelming, sensory overload, just an amazing time. And so you combine that plus all the other fun that we add to the event, just hanging out and having a good time and telling war stories. It's often like the instructor sitting there tapping their fingers like, "Hey, we're late." But it's always in good fun.
Yeah. Well, Luke, I want to thank you for your service to our country. I want to thank
you. I appreciate that.
Yep. I want to thank you for putting this program together and helping heroes just deal with whatever they have going on in their life. And I want to thank you for sharing your story with our listeners. It was great having you on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And obviously, if anybody's interested in getting really nerdy in the science, reach out to us too. We'll get as nerdy as you want. And thank you so much for this opportunity, Bill. I mean, it was great meeting you guys at 944 Fest. When you offered this opportunity, it was, I mean, I don't do very many of these at all. So this is very cool, man. This is a cool experience. I appreciate the opportunity. And if there's anything that we could do for you guys, we hope to see you on the track. See you guys out there and hang out, say hi.